What's up everyone, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you guys are having a good day. This is Josh from VaultHuntersUnion. I'm here to continue my series of versus games. In previous videos we have compared Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, and we've also compared Battlefield 3 and Call of Duty Black Ops 2. I've spent some time trying to figure out exactly what games I should be comparing in the near future, and I was unable to find any, and then a random person actually posted a comment on one of my videos and gave me a pretty good idea. We are going to go ahead and compare two of the Elder Scrolls games. We did Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, so I figure it is okay if we do two games. One's a sequel to the other, not really a direct sequel, but a sequel in this series. We're going to compare the Elder Scrolls 4, also known as Oblivion, and the Elder Scrolls 5, also known as Skyrim. In this comparison, we are going to exclude DLC for the time being. We're just going to talk about the two base games just to make sure that things are on a level playing field. Much like my other videos, that'll probably end up being a fairly long video, so I don't want to waste any time. Let's just go ahead and get started. So first of all, we're going to go over some background information for both games. Oblivion was released on March 20th, 2006 for all platforms. It was developed by Bethesda Game Studios for Microsoft Windows and Xbox 360. It was developed by Superscape for the mobile phone version and developed by 4J Studios for the PlayStation 3. The publishers for Oblivion were 2K Games for Microsoft Windows and Xbox 360, VIR2L, I don't really know how to pronounce that, VIR2L Studios for the mobile phone, and by Bethesda Softworks for the PlayStation 3. Now Skyrim was released worldwide on November 11th, 2011, in Japan on December 8th, 2011, and the new Legendary Edition was released on June 4th, 2013 worldwide. It was developed by Bethesda Game Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to break down the games into categories and compare and figure out which one I think is better. In my opinion, again, this is just all going to be in my opinion, so we're going to break it down into categories such as like graphics and gameplay and acting, voice acting, various things like that. We're going to compare them and see what the final verdict is. So let's not waste any time. Let's just get right into it. So I'm not going to go into too much detail and talk about much about what happens past the beginning of the game, just in case there are people out there that are living under a rock and have never played the game. But I'm just going to give a brief summary of the introduction to both games so that we have a comparison of the stories. So basically, Oblivion puts you in the role of a player who is in an imperial prison. The Emperor needs to get through into the sewers through a secret entrance, and that entrance happens to be in your cell. And in order to, the guards are basically going to kill you, but the Emperor realizes that he has seen you in the dreams, and he allows you to travel with him and his bodyguards to escape the prison. Once you escape, he gives you an amulet that you have to well, the Emperor is killed, then he gives you an amulet to bring to Joffrey. Basically, the game takes you through the world of Oblivion. Oh, it's not Oblivion, that's not the name of the world, but whatever, and has you going and closing the gates of Oblivion. There are many gates that appear, and you have to close them. Now, the series took a twist in Skyrim, and they involved dragons in this game. Now, the story basically revolves around dragons. You basically, as with the other Elder Scrolls games, you start off in a prison. In this case, you're basically tied up on the back of a wagon, being pulled by a horse, and you're being basically sent to your execution. You actually get to see a guy get decapitated in the introduction, which is actually pretty cool. And then before it's your turn to get executed, a dragon appears, and basically shit goes to chaos, and you are basically able to escape the chaos with the help of one or two different people if you're choosing. There's kind of a different way to go about each one. Basically, it is ultimately determined that you may be dragonborn, which means you have the soul of a dragon. It means you have the ability to make dragon shouts and calls and kill dragons. So the story basically revolves around you learning to enhance your abilities to slay dragons and learning their shouts. Again, that's just a really brief summary. Obviously, there's a lot of different things going on in between that, but I'm not going to go over the whole story again. I don't want to ruin it for everybody. And obviously, a lot of the things that occur in the story are based on the decisions you make throughout. So that's just a brief summary of basically what you're aiming to do throughout the game, but again, I don't want to ruin it for anyone. So in terms of the story itself, neither game's story is really in-depth or anything like that. It's really basically geared around the open world and the exploration and everything like that. But if I have to pick a winner of the story, I'm actually going to give it to Oblivion. Skyrim's story for me was a little bit plain. I mean, there's more twists and turns, but I think the story in Oblivion was a little bit more interesting and a little bit more captivating, and it was easier to know what you were doing and what the ultimate goal was. So for me, I'm going to give it to Oblivion. Skyrim's story was still pretty good, but again, with it being mostly centered around the dragons, there's not much of a story. That's just my opinion, but for me, I have to give the nod to Oblivion. First things first, there is a difference between graphics and environment. In this case, we're just going to take a look at the graphics, so we're not going to worry about the coloring or the haze or the look of anything. We're actually going to be comparing the physical graphics, so like the terrain, the water, the objects, the people, the animations, and stuff like that. So I just want to make that clear before we proceed. This one is pretty much a no-brainer. We're going to give the graphics nod to Skyrim, obviously with Oblivion being 6 or 7 years old and Skyrim being a year and a bit old. Obviously, Skyrim is going to have much better graphics, and of course it does. Then that's not a knock on Oblivion. Oblivion is a great looking game. It is gorgeous, very colorful, probably actually more colorful and vibrant than Skyrim. However, Skyrim obviously is a newer version of Oblivion. It's not, obviously they're not different games, but it's more touched up, more polished. Everything does look a lot better, and yeah, it's definitely a much better looking game. But again, not a knock on Oblivion. Oblivion is gorgeous. Environment is not really just a physical thing, just how everything appears, but it also is more of a feel as well. A game may look really good, but if it's got a shitty environment and it's not very playable and it doesn't really look very attractive and doesn't have a good feel to it, you're really not going to enjoy yourself. So for me, an environment is probably just as much about the feel as it is about the physical appearance. Another thing that can affect it is the variables, like if there's lots of different elements and stuff like that. For me, both games really do combine a lot of different elements, such as snow, different levels of terrain, different kinds of terrain, mountains and stuff like that. So they're both pretty much equal in terms of physical objects. In terms of actual physical appearance, Skyrim obviously, again, just like graphics, is going to be much better because it is newer, runs on a better engine. So the elements and the weather and stuff like that is going to look a lot better, as well as the terrain and the different objects in the terrain. But while Skyrim may physically look a lot better, in terms of detail, might be more detailed, I am actually going to give the nod in terms of environments to Oblivion. Skyrim is an absolutely gorgeous and breathtaking and extremely high detailed, much more so than Oblivion. However, for me, Skyrim has too much of it. Skyrim is basically all dark and gloomy and hazy, and while it does look nice, I actually prefer the more positive and breathtaking and also very high quality environment of Oblivion. It's definitely not as high of detail, but for me, I prefer the look of the environment in Oblivion over Skyrim. I think that if they took Oblivion and basically redid it with the Skyrim engine, I think it would look a lot better. But that's just my opinion again. Of course, while this video is going, if you'd like to leave your comments in below to let me know what you think, that'd be cool. Combat between these two games is eerily similar. Obviously, they're based basically on the exact same game, the same type of gameplay. So combat is pretty much the same. You are given access to blades, you're given access to axes, hammers, two-handed weapons, one-handed weapons, and obviously various types of magic. Of course, with Skyrim being basically an updated version of Oblivion, Skyrim does have a couple things that Oblivion does not have. The main thing that it has is dual wielding. Basically, dual wielding allows you to carry two different one-handed weapons at a time, or if you're a magic fan, you can carry two different spells at one time, one in each hand, and you can also use two different spells, so you can cast two fireballs, you can cast a fireball and a lightning magic, or you can even be casting like a fire spell in one hand and a healing spell in the other, so basically you're dealing damage to the enemy and healing yourself at the same time. So there's lots of different elements of combat that you can have, and for me, obviously, I'd be stupid to say Oblivion because for me, Skyrim obviously is better. It's basically the same combat as Oblivion and Morrowind, but the dual wielding is obviously a really cool addition. So Skyrim for me. Both games do feature guilds. First one we're going to talk about is Oblivion. There are several minor guilds and other factions as well, but we're going to talk about the three main guilds. Those are the Fighters Guild, the Mages Guild, and the Thieves Guild. There's also the Dark Brotherhood and the Arena. For the case of this review, though, we're going to talk about the three main ones. Those are the Fighters Guild, the Mages Guild, and the Thieves Guild. For those of you that don't know, the guilds basically are groups that you can join. Obviously, Fighters Guild, Mages Guild, and Thieves Guild, what they do in the guilds are pretty self-explanatory. But basically, when you join, you start out in the bottom ranks of the guild, and you have to complete quests for people in higher ranks, and basically through word of mouth, you will be raised up into higher levels of the guild, eventually till you reach the top, and there are obviously rewards at the end and perks for being at the highest level of each guild. I wouldn't say that the quests for these guilds are easy. The Fighters Guild one is definitely the easiest one. You have to, for most of them, basically just go into different caves or areas, and usually you're just killing someone and bringing an item back, or looking for an item, bringing it back, or something like that. Nothing complicated at all. It's all pretty easy. Sometimes the fights are a little bit challenging, especially if you play on a higher difficulty level, but overall the missions in the Fighters Guild are pretty easy. The other two are a little bit more difficult, not really at first, but as you make your way through the ranks, they're going to be giving you more difficult quests as they obviously would trust you more. At first you're pretty much doing grunt work, but once you get through the Mages Guild and the Thieves Guild further into it, it is a lot more challenging, and you're probably just doing the 3 guilds alone, let alone the Dark Brotherhood and the Arena, you probably spend quite a few hours, maybe even upwards of 10 or more hours completing quests for the guild. So it is very rewarding, especially when you make your way to the top, and getting your way to the top also can be a lot of fun as well. Now Skyrim does feature the same guilds, however some of them are named differently. In Oblivion, the Fighters Guild was called the Fighters Guild. In Skyrim it's called the Companions. In Oblivion, the Mages Guild was called the Mages Guild. In Skyrim it's called the College of Winterhold. Dark Brotherhood is featured in both games and is known as Dark Brotherhood in both games, as well as the Thieves Guild. There is a Thieves Guild in both games. I haven't personally fully completed all the different quests in the Skyrim guilds, but I have completed them all in Oblivion. Right now, I am still going to give the nod to Skyrim. Oblivion does have much more quests, and it's probably a more memorable storyline. However, there's a lot more to do in Skyrim, and it's more in depth. You can kind of really get to know more of your companions, more of the people in the different quests, as opposed to Oblivion, where you're pretty much just doing grunt work over and over and over again. It gets kind of repetitive, and seems like more you're doing chore work. So you probably get more rewards for completing. It's probably more rewarding in terms of what you get for completing the quests in Oblivion, but in Skyrim, basically there's more of a climax. They're more enjoyable quests. There's not as many, but probably a lot more fun, I would say, so far. But that's just my opinion. This is not actually pertaining to the enemies themselves in the game. If that were the case, Skyrim would definitely take it for me with the trolls and the giants and the mammoths and stuff like that. There's a huge variety of different enemies in the game, definitely much more than Oblivion. This is more about the leveling system of the enemies. In Oblivion, as you leveled up and got stronger, the enemies did as well. So if you went and fought a guard or something at level 1, it would be a much easier fight. But if you went back at like level 15 or level 20 or even higher, that guard is going to be much stronger, much more equipped, and it's going to be more of a balanced fight and much more harder to take him out. Skyrim pretty much follows the same principle, but it is to a much lower extent. For example, a giant at a lower level will crush you, but if you gain a few levels, it'll be more of a fair fight. You don't have to level up too much. Really just take note of enemies that kill you easy, so you know when to run until you get stronger. But if you complete a dungeon, you'll see it on your map. It'll be labeled cleared. Then the enemies will stay at the same level that they were when you completed it. So if you complete a level dungeon at, for example, level 3, you revisit at level 25, you'll still be fighting level 3 enemies. So it's a little bit more of a, they level up with you to an extent, but not too far of an extent. Unlike Oblivion, they just keep leveling up with you. So if you're the highest level, they're going to be at the highest level too. So Skyrim is the same kind of way, but obviously if you're fighting like a mud crab or something like that and you're level 100, no matter what, that mud crab's not going to have a chance. So they make it so that mud crab will level up with you, but only to an extent. The leveling and the point system is pretty much the same in Oblivion and Skyrim, and very different from a game like Fallout. In Fallout, basically when you kill an enemy or you complete quests or anything like that, you are given experience points. Once you reach enough and you level up, you are given a certain amount of skill points that's predetermined for you to basically apply to your character in its various categories to help improve your character. The Elder Scrolls series is very different in the sense that you get better at doing things as you do them as opposed to applying skill points. So if you jump around a lot, you're going to get different, your acrobatic skill is going to go up, or running around or swimming is going to improve your athletics. Using blades or using different weapons, different magic is going to improve your skills in those various categories. So obviously the more you do them, the more you're going to be better at them, and the longer it takes to level them up as the levels get higher. So it's possible to have almost a full maxed out character just by completing and doing the tasks, the different things many times. You can obviously access those in the menu. So basically in Oblivion, you're given major skills that you choose at the beginning, and you have to level those ones up a certain amount of times. It can be any combination of however many times you want to level one up over the other, but basically 10 times, and then you gain a level. You have to go to sleep to level up. Skyrim's a little bit different, whereas all skills apply to this now, and you have to level them all up, gain a certain amount of levels overall in your skill points, and then you're able to level up as well. You don't actually need to go to sleep in this game to level up. You can just go to the menu and go up to level up, and then you level up. So in this case, I am going to call it a draw because it's pretty much the same thing. Oblivion had many more different things that you could level up, but Skyrim pretty much simplified it. They simplified a lot of different things into one category or eliminated it altogether. But if I had to give the advantage, I maybe to Skyrim if I had to pick, because in Oblivion you had to find a bed to sleep to level up. In Oblivion, as we have stated, you have to level up by improving any combination of your major skills a total of 10 times and then rest on a bed. That's when the level up will take effect. Any minor skills that you have increased during this time do not influence when you level up. As well as we said before, when you level up, the strength of your opponents increases, so the level of many NPCs will be higher and you'll encounter more difficult creatures. There are of course some advantages to leveling up in Oblivion. Your health increases by 10% of your endurance, and you do get 3 attributes that you're able to increase by up to 5 points each, and many improvements are only possible by increasing your attributes. So there's not a whole lot in terms of skill points per se. And the last thing is, of course, that the equipment that you can obtain is dependent on your level. So if you're a low level, you're not going to get access to very high-end armor or weapons. The higher you are in terms of levels, you're going to get access to much more rare weapons and rare armor. So there's kind of a balance whether you want to be a high level to get the rare stuff or be a low level and have the low end stuff but face easier enemies. So that's part of the challenge in Oblivion, is finding the correct level you want to be, trying to find that balance. As mentioned before, Skyrim does have 2 levels of leveling just like Oblivion, so you are able to level your character and your skill. Obviously, as we said, you level your skills by doing those skills. So if you want to level your destruction magic, you want to be casting destruction spells. Each time your character level increases though, you are provided the opportunity to make key choices about your abilities, so you can choose to either increase your health, magic, or your stamina by 10 points, and then you're given 1 new perk point to invest. There's 18 different skills that you can apply it to, and basically you can invest it into one of those different perks, such as alchemy or sneaking or restoration or anything like that, any of the different skills. The difference in Skyrim is that in Skyrim, there is a form of XP that applies to leveling up. Instead of Oblivion, where you have to level up one of your major skills a combined 10 times, everything can be applied towards leveling up, but there is a weight factor to your skills. Any skills that are already a higher level are going to give you more experience when you level them up, as opposed to lowering up lower level skills. So basically having it pushes you to more having a well-rounded character if you're pushing for levels. So if your unarmed skill is really high, like 60 or 70 or 80 points, when you finally level it up, you're going to be rewarded more as if you use like a sneak skill, which is like level 5, and you raise it to 6. So there's a bit of a weight factor to how many points, how much experience you get for leveling up certain skills, so it is more advanced. I am of course going to give this to Skyrim, but probably barely. In my opinion, the leveling system in Skyrim obviously is much more advanced and much more involved and in-depth, so it gives you even more customization of your character. However, I am a guy who prefers things a little bit more simple, so Oblivion is, for me, it's easier and it's much more user-friendly than Skyrim is. Skyrim's a little bit more complicated. You're not really going to understand what's going on unless you've played Oblivion before, but for me, obviously I would sacrifice a little bit of ease of use for more customization and more in-depth. So it's really cool that you can choose different things with each skill, different perks with each skill. So for me, I'm going to give the nod to Skyrim, but I could understand why somebody would give it to Oblivion. So it's going to be a narrow margin, but Skyrim narrowly takes the cake for me. In terms of side quests, both games feature plenty of side quests, more than you can spend many hours more doing side quests than you would be doing the main quest. The main quest actually can be done in both games probably in 4 or 5 hours or so, and that's if you're taking your time. Side quests, you're adding dozens of hours. But what I'm going to do is I am going to give the nod for side quests to Oblivion. Oblivion's overall game, story, and map are much smaller than Skyrim. I believe I read somewhere about 60% smaller in total. Smaller than Skyrim. However, for me, I found the side quests to be more in-depth and much more varied. There's more variations and more different things to do in these different side quests. It's not all just repetitive. Skyrim's not all repetitive either, but there's a lot of the same things going on. Whereas Oblivion, there's a bit of a variety of different quests, and you really started to really care about what was going on, as opposed to Skyrim. It kind of just feels like you're doing some bitch work. So for me, I think there's more creativity and more variation, more variety in the side quests in Oblivion. The one gripe I have with Skyrim, and this is one of the things I hate the most about Skyrim, is that both games are going to have you, if you're like me and you like to talk to everyone and explore different things, you're going to have tons and tons of different quests going at one time. You're going to see a whole bunch of them listed, especially in Skyrim where there's much more quests. In Skyrim, basically it is incredibly difficult to differentiate these side quests from the main quests. It took me a bit of research to figure out how to actually differentiate the two, but it's really hard to tell either way. Whereas Oblivion, it's pretty easily labeled which ones are side quests, which ones are main quests. Like, I like to do side quests before doing the main quests, or at least do a sum, and it's really hard to tell which quests I'm doing are main quests and which ones are side quests. And also that makes it hard to keep up with the story, because you don't really know which quests you're doing tie into the main story, or if they're just done on the side, you're just doing favors for somebody or whatever. But that's pretty much going to do it for this review, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, I'd appreciate it if you left a like rating below. What we are going to do now is we are going to choose one game over the other, and I'm not going to base it on which game won the most categories that I chose from. I'm going to just base it on my personal opinion that if I had to pick one or the other, which one would I pick? So we're going to go ahead and do that now. And if someone came up to me and put a gun to my head and said you can have either Oblivion or Skyrim to play for the rest of your life, I would choose Yes, that's right, guys. I would actually choose Oblivion over Skyrim, believe it or not, and here's why. For me, a game is all about feel. I'm not worried about how a game looks. I'm not worried about how much customization there is. I'm more worried about the feel and how I feel when I play the game and how much there is to do and, the environment and stuff like that. Skyrim for me was a very gorgeous game, as I've already said, but for me, I like the positive, the bright colors and everything in the environment in Oblivion. Skyrim for me was just a little too hazy and dark all the time. It was pretty consistent, whereas Skyrim for me, I just my opinion, I prefer the look of the environment. It's definitely a lot more colorful and more vibrant in terms of colors and brightness, and for me, I prefer that environment. Skyrim still looks good, but for me, I prefer Oblivion. I also really did not like how they simplified the different skills that you had that you could raise. Things like athletics and acrobatics and stuff like that were taken out and pretty much all simplified into different categories. I wasn't really a fan of that. I liked being able to raise each individual thing you did as you got better at it and did it more. That was my thing I really liked doing in Oblivion, and I'm really disappointed the fact that they really simplified that in Skyrim. There are also a handful of small things that were taken out and simplified or removed altogether in Skyrim. Can't name them all off the top of my head, unfortunately, but one of them that I always liked doing in Oblivion was enchanting my own weapons. Kind of stupid you can't do that in Skyrim anymore. I didn't do it a whole lot. When I played Oblivion, I was more of a fighter, but I did have a couple mages and stuff like that, and it kind of sucked that you couldn't enchant weapons in this game. But there are a lot of different things they do in Skyrim that you can't do. But for me, sometimes it's a small thing that matters, and unfortunately, I am going to give Oblivion the cake on this one. Like I said, I have no real true explanation why, but I remember when I first played Oblivion and when I was playing Oblivion for many hundreds of hours that I put into it, I couldn't wait every day to get home from work and play it, or get home from school and play it, whereas with Skyrim it always seemed like a chore for me to turn on the PlayStation or turn on my PC and play it. Just didn't really enjoy my experience as much as I did with Oblivion. That's not a knock on Skyrim, because Skyrim is an amazing game as well, but I definitely had more enjoyment playing Oblivion. But again, guys, that's pretty much going to do it for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, I'd appreciate it if you left a like rating below. I appreciate any support you could give, as videos like this take me probably 10 or 15 hours to complete from all the editing and the recording and stuff like that. As always, if you're new to the channel, I urge you guys to subscribe and check out some of my other videos, some of my other versus videos and other general gameplay videos that I have on my channel. And of course, in the comments below, if you have any suggestions for future videos you'd like to see, or if you want to make a point about anything I talked about in this review, or if you want to make your own points, I'd definitely love to hear them, so leave them in the comments below. Other than that, guys, I don't have a whole lot more to say. I just want to thank you guys for watching and checking out my channel. Other than that, I hope you guys have a good day. Peace out.